Liz is getting ready to do the second coat of our finish. This coat is going to use the colored acrylic add mix and the Milestone Hybridized Cement powder. It takes about half an ounce of liquid per square foot. For this particular finish, we're going to use a combination of a fiberglass trowel and a Bondo squeegee. The reason for using those is that neither one of them is going to produce the black burnish marks that a steel trowel would create. As you can see, Liz is working off a hawk again. She is using a very small amount of mix at a time, and then she's spreading it, switching back and forth between the left and the right edge of her trowel, keeping wet mix on either side of the trowel. Applying your mix in that way may take a little getting used to, but there is a good reason for doing it in that way. There will always be a time when you need to use the second edge of your trowel to make sure that you have a nice organic looking finish. If at that point you have a dry mix on that edge, you will just end up damaging your finish. You'll be doing yourself a favor if you develop that habit of switching back and forth right from the start. But now let's pay attention to what Liz is actually doing. So she picks up some mud, deposits it on the surface, and goes and spreads it out left, right, and then she redeposits it on the surface and spreads it out again left, right. Let's take a look at that sequence in slow motion. She takes the mud off the hawk and deposits it on the surface. Then she spreads it one side, comes back, spreads it the other side. Again, depositing by wiping it off on the edge, spreading one way, and spreading the other way. Depositing and spreading. This time she'll be using the same edge. Then she'll redeposit mud and spread it again using the same edge. Eventually she'll switch back to the other side to make sure that the mix stays wet on both edges of the trowel. And now she's transferring a new amount of mix from the hawk to the surface. By doing so, she is completing one application cycle, and it very well demonstrates what we mean when we say use small amounts and work on small areas at a time. As we keep watching, we can see that Liz uses small amounts again to come back over the surface that she has already worked on and put a thin layer over this existing surface. This is how the color variegations that are an essential part of our finish are created. So now that you have had a chance to study the use of the fiberglass trowel, let's take a look at the use of a Bondo squeegee for the same finish. A word on Bondo squeegees: they have a very fine soft edge. That edge will fray as you're using it over the aggregate in the base coat, and from time to time you'll have to clean it up. The best way to do that is to just clean your Bondo squeegee and then go and take your sanding pad and actually sand off the edge of the squeegee on the sanding pad, getting rid of all the little curled up pieces of plastic so that they don't come off and eventually end up in your finish. When she's using the Bondo squeegee, Liz is using only one edge as opposed to the two edges used on the fiberglass trowel. And the amounts that she's applying are even smaller than what she was using when she worked with a fiberglass trowel. Squeegee is great to use not just on a flat surface like we're demonstrating here in the sample, but also on any kind of a curved surface, around edges, bull noses. Because of its flexibility, it allows you to pretty much adapt to any shape A squeegee also can be cut down to any shape or size, allowing you to deal with hard to reach areas. Now that our sample has dried, we'll take a look at sanding. We're using the same sandpaper, only this time 150 grit. And when we're sanding our finishes, we do not use sanding blocks. We use hands only. It allows us to get into any crevices that are part of the finish. There's a couple of different ways of preparing your sandpaper. Here's one of them. It's the same way that we tore the sandpaper to put it onto our sanding pan. And then that can be folded into thirds. It makes for a nice compact piece of sandpaper. The other way is to crease your sandpaper both ways and then tear down one half to the center point. You can then go and fold the different parts over in such a way that there's no two sheets of sandpaper rubbing against each other as you're sanding, which means you're not using it up on the inside of your little pack. And you just change the folding order once you have used up one side of it. When you're sanding, you always want to wear gloves and a respirator. You can sand by applying pressure with your whole hand, or you can actually apply pressure by just using a couple of fingers when you go into areas that have more recesses where you have to really go into the crevices and even things out. When you're done sanding, you'll need to remove the dust. On vertical surfaces you can just use a broom or a rag, but when you're doing a horizontal surface you may actually dampen your rag just slightly, so instead of just getting the dust airborne, it actually picks it up and then can be washed out. Just make sure that it's not a wet rag. Barely damp is all you need. So now that we have removed all dust from our surface, we're getting ready to apply sealers, and you'll get to see that in part 3 of our video.